Earth's orbital defense station hummed with activity. Commander Elijah Carter stared at the holographic display, his face grim. 3 red dots moved slowly toward Earth's solar system. "They're coming," he said quietly. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Mason Phillips, nodded. "Third Fleet movement this month. Bigger than the others." Elijah zoomed in on the alien ships. They belonged to the Vraxian Empire, the same species that had destroyed the human colony on Proxima Centauri 2 years ago. 17,000 lives lost in a single day. "Send the data to headquarters. I want to speak with Admiral Scott within the hour," Elijah ordered. Back in his quarters, Elijah found his wife, Dr. Olivia Carter, reviewing xenobiology reports. Her dark hair was pulled back, eyes focused on multiple screens displaying alien DNA sequences. "You should see this," she said without looking up. "I've been analyzing communication patterns between the 5 major alien coalitions." She pulled up a chart showing communication frequency over the past century. "Look at these spikes," Olivia pointed. "Each one happens right before a major human conflict. The African Resource War, the Pacific Blockade, even the Mars Colony Rebellion." Elijah leaned closer. "You think they've been manipulating us?" "Not just manipulating. Testing." Olivia switched to another screen. "These species have been watching us fight each other, studying our tactics, our weapons, our resilience. Like watching animals in a zoo," Elijah said bitterly. "Worse, like scientists running experiments." Olivia stood up. "I think they've been pushing us toward conflicts to evaluate us as a threat." Elijah's communication panel buzzed. Admiral Scott appeared on screen, her face serious. "Carter, we've reviewed your findings. The President has called an emergency meeting. Get to Washington immediately. Bring your wife and her research." 6 hours later, Elijah and Olivia sat at a large table in a secure underground facility beneath the White House. The room held 12 people: military leaders, scientists, and government officials. Defense Secretary Ryan Walsh spoke first. "The evidence is clear. The coalition of alien species has been manipulating humanity for generations. Now they're preparing for direct action against Earth." President Rebecca Harris, a former military officer with steel-gray hair, looked at each person in the room. "Options." Admiral Scott cleared her throat. "Conventional defense is impossible. Their technology outmatches ours by centuries." "Diplomacy?" asked Foreign Secretary Jordan West. "We've tried 3 diplomatic missions, all ignored," replied Secretary Walsh. Olivia spoke up. "They don't see us as equals. They see us as animals to be studied, controlled, or eliminated." The room fell silent. Finally, General Kevin Martinez, head of Special Weapons Division, placed a small black cube on the table. "Project Terminus," he said simply. President Harris's eyes widened. "I thought that was theoretical." "Not anymore," replied the general. "We've had a breakthrough. The system works." "What exactly is Project Terminus?" Elijah asked. General Martinez touched the cube. A hologram appeared showing the strange device. "After the Proxima massacre, we developed this. It can collapse a star's nuclear fusion process, creating a controlled implosion." "You're talking about stellar destruction," Olivia whispered. "Yes, we can't match their fleets, but we can ensure mutual destruction. No species survives the death of their home star." President Harris stood up. "This is a weapon of last resort, but I won't let humanity be exterminated without consequence." She looked at each person in the room. "We will send one final warning. If they continue their aggression, we activate Terminus." Elijah took Olivia's hand under the table. They had both seen what alien weapons did to human colonies. They had both lost friends. "Let's hope they listen," Olivia whispered. But in his heart, Elijah knew that humanity's final warning would likely fall on deaf ears. The stars themselves might soon bear witness to humanity's desperate stand. Fleet Admiral Grace Reynolds stood before the massive view screen on the bridge of the EDF Defender. Stars stretched across the blackness of space. Behind her, officers worked at their stations, voices low and tense. "Status report," she commanded. Captain Frank Miller approached with a tablet. "All available ships have assembled, Admiral. 47 combat vessels, 32 support ships." Grace nodded. It was all that remained of Earth's once proud space fleet after the attacks on Mars and Europa. She studied the tactical display, showing their small fleet positioned between Earth and the approaching alien armada. It won't be enough, she thought, but kept her face calm for the crew. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Daniel Wright from the communications station. "I need to speak with you. It's urgent." Daniel was the youngest officer on the bridge, barely 26, but already known for his brilliant work with alien communication systems. Grace followed him to his station. "What is it, Lieutenant?" Daniel's eyes were bright with excitement. "I found a way to break into all known alien communication networks simultaneously." "All of them?" Grace asked, surprised. "That's impossible. They use completely different technologies." That's what everyone thought. Daniel pulled up diagrams on his screen. "But I discovered something. All their systems use variations of quantum entanglement. Different approaches, but the same principle." He pointed to a complex equation. "This frequency modulation can act as a master key. We can broadcast to every spacefaring species at once." Grace stared at the screen. "Can you make it work?" "Already have. Small test transmission sent an hour ago. Confirmed receipt from 17 different alien networks." Grace straightened her uniform. "Get the system ready. I need to speak with Earth Command." 2 hours later, President Harris authorized the transmission. The leaders of Earth gathered in the command center as Daniel prepared the broadcast system. "We're live in 30 seconds, he announced. Grace stood before the camera. She wore her full dress uniform, medals gleaming under the lights. Behind her stood military leaders and government officials, a united front of humanity. "Transmission active," Daniel said. Grace looked directly into the camera. "To all spacefaring civilizations, this is Fleet Admiral Grace Reynolds of Earth. For centuries, you have watched us, studied us, manipulated our conflicts. Now you gather your forces to attack our world." Her voice remained steady, but cold. "This message serves as humanity's final warning. Cease all hostile actions against Earth and human colonies immediately. Withdraw your forces. Any further aggression will be met with consequences beyond your imagination." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We have developed weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. We do not wish to use them. But make no mistake, we will not allow humanity to be exterminated without response." Grace concluded, "You have 48 Earth hours to begin withdrawal and open diplomatic channels. Your time starts now." The transmission ended. The command center remained silent until Daniel spoke. "Confirmation received. All major species got our message." President Harris looked at Grace. "Now we wait." They didn't wait long. Within 6 hours, responses flooded in from across the galaxy. Daniel worked frantically to translate them all, but the message was essentially the same from every alien coalition. "They're dismissing us," Daniel reported. "The Vraxians call us primitive monkeys making empty threats. The Calatrian hegemony says we're desperate prey trying to scare predators." Grace wasn't surprised. "They don't believe we have the capability." Professor Simon Murphy, chief scientist of Project Terminus, spoke quietly from the back of the room. "Then we need to show them." President Harris nodded slowly. "Prepare a demonstration. Find an uninhabited system." Grace looked at the star map, at the thousands of points of light. Soon, one would vanish forever. "God help us all," she whispered. Professor Simon Murphy's hands shook slightly as he made the final adjustments to the Terminus device. The weapon looked deceptively simple, a cylindrical object about the size of a small car. Its surface was covered with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as he watched. "Is it ready?" asked Commander Elijah Carter, who stood behind him in the laboratory. Simon nodded. as ready as it will ever be. The quantum matrix is stable. The gravitational focus is calibrated. He paused. This will work, Elijah. But once we cross this line— I know, Elijah replied softly, but they've left us no choice. 2 days had passed since humanity's warning was sent. The alien response had been clear. They were continuing their approach toward Earth. Long-range sensors detected more ships joining the Armada every hour. In a secure room aboard the EDF Defender, Admiral Grace Reynolds met with the mission team. The atmosphere was tense as everyone understood what they were about to do. The target has been selected, Grace announced, bringing up a holographic display of a distant solar system. HD 219,134. It has 7 planets, but no life forms. It's far enough from populated systems that the demonstration will be visible, but cause no collateral damage. Captain Frank Miller studied the star system. How will we get the device there? Our fastest ships would take months. Professor Simon cleared his throat. We don't need to. Terminus works through quantum tunneling. Once deployed, it creates a wormhole directly to the target coordinates. Lieutenant Daniel Wright looked skeptical. That's theoretical physics. Nobody has ever created a stable wormhole. Nobody human, Simon corrected. We reverse-engineered this from technology recovered after the Proxima incident. President Harris joined the meeting via secure link. Her face appeared on the main screen. Professor Murphy, what exactly will happen when Terminus activates? Simon stepped forward. The device will create a quantum singularity inside the star's core. It will collapse the fusion process, causing an implosion rather than an explosion. The star will fold in on itself, creating a miniature black hole. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated this. Deploy the device, the president finally ordered. May history forgive us. 6 hours later, the Terminus device was moved to the launch bay. Simon entered the final coordinates while engineers prepared for deployment. A countdown began. Terminus device ready, Simon reported. Quantum tunnel forming. A strange distortion appeared in the air before them, like rippling water. The Terminus device began to glow with blue light. Slowly, it moved forward on its own, as if pulled by an invisible force, and disappeared into the distortion. Terminus has arrived at target coordinates, announced a technician. Activation in 5 seconds. On screens throughout the ship, they watched the distant star HD 219,134. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the star's light began to flicker. It's working, Simon whispered. The star's surface churned violently. Its brilliant yellow glow darkened to orange, then red. Suddenly, the entire star seemed to shrink, collapsing inward at impossible speed. A final flash of light erupted, then darkness. Where the star had been, only blackness remained. Confirmation, said Daniel from his station. HD 219,134 has collapsed. The event is visible across all sectors. Admiral Grace stepped forward. Send the second message. Daniel activated the broadcast system again. This time, Grace's message was brief. To all spacefaring civilizations, what you just witnessed was a demonstration on an uninhabited system. We possess more Terminus devices, aimed at populated worlds. We ask again, withdraw your forces and open diplomatic channels. This is your final opportunity. The next star to fall will not be empty. As the message went out, Elijah looked at the empty space where a star had shone for billions of years until today. He wondered what forces they had unleashed, and if the galaxy would ever be the same again. Major Natalie Foster stood before the crowd gathered in Unity Plaza. Behind her, the holographic display showed the empty space where star HD 219,134 had been just days ago. Thousands of people had come to hear her speak. We cannot become what we claim to fight against, she said, her voice carrying across the plaza. Using Terminus means becoming destroyers of worlds. Once we cross that line, there's no coming back. The crowd responded with mixed reactions. Some cheered while others shouted in anger. Earth was divided. After the demonstration of Terminus, some saw it as humanity's salvation, others as a moral catastrophe. Natalie glanced at the security personnel surrounding the plaza. Things had become tense since the demonstration. People who opposed Terminus were being labeled traitors by some military factions. My own brother commands a ship carrying one of these weapons, she continued. I love him. I love Earth. But this path leads to darkness. Aboard the EDF Vigilant, Captain Peter Foster watched his sister's speech on a small screen in his quarters. He shut it off with a sigh. The Terminus device sat in his ship's cargo hold, destination coordinates already programmed. The home system of the Vraxian Empire. Captain to the bridge, came a voice over the intercom. Peter found his executive officer waiting. Sir, we're receiving unusual communications from the alien coalition. They're fragmented, contradictory. Show me, Peter ordered. The communications officer displayed dozens of transmissions. Some alien species continued to threaten Earth, but others were sending messages of withdrawal. The coalition is breaking apart, Peter realized. The demonstration worked. Back on Earth, civilian engineer Alan Martinez worked late in his laboratory. As part of the Terminus support team, he had access to alien communication intercepts. Something strange had caught his attention. Alan had discovered patterns in the alien transmissions that made no sense until he realized he was looking at internal communications never meant for human eyes. He had accidentally broken a deeper encryption layer. This can't be right, he muttered, reading the translations. The data showed that the coalition wasn't unified. Several species had been forced to join through threats. Others had joined based on false information about humanity's intentions. Most shocking of all, the initial attacks on human colonies appeared to have been carried out by a single faction, with evidence falsified to implicate others. Alan immediately contacted Admiral Grace Reynolds. In the presidential bunker, Grace presented Alan's findings to President Harris and her advisors. The alien coalition is fracturing, Grace explained. Many never wanted this conflict. They were manipulated just as we were. By whom? President Harris asked. A faction called the Dominion, Alan replied. They've been orchestrating this for centuries. Elijah Carter studied the evidence. If this is true, we're about to destroy worlds that may be victims themselves. Meanwhile, Major Natalie Foster was arrested by military police as she left Unity Plaza. The charge: sedition against Earth during wartime. Her supporters protested, leading to clashes in the streets. Your sister has been detained, Lieutenant Wright told Captain Peter Foster over a secure channel. Peter's face hardened. On whose authority? General Martinez. He's pushing to launch Terminus immediately, against the President's orders. Peter looked out at the stars, thinking of the weapon his ship carried. This isn't right, Daniel. We need to be certain. On Earth, tensions escalated. Military units loyal to General Martinez moved to secure Terminus control centers. Others remained loyal to President Harris, who had ordered a pause to evaluate the new intelligence. Alan Martinez worked frantically to decode more alien transmissions, searching for the truth. We're running out of time, he told Olivia Carter, who had joined his research team. If we launch those weapons against the wrong targets, there's no taking it back. The fate of multiple civilizations now hung in the balance. Ambassador William Chen straightened his formal diplomatic uniform as the shuttle approached the neutral station. The massive ring-shaped structure floated in deep space, exactly halfway between Earth-controlled territory and the nearest alien system. Are you sure about this, sir? Asked his security chief, Jack Wilson. It could be a trap. It's always a trap in some way, William replied calmly. But we need to try. If there's even a small chance to avoid using Terminus again, we must take it. The Earth delegation consisted of 15 people, diplomats, military advisors, and xenobiologists, including Dr. Olivia Carter. They had been carefully selected by President Harris, despite objections from General Martinez. Remember, William told his team as they prepared to dock, "Our goal is to identify which species are truly hostile and which were manipulated into this coalition. We need allies." The station's main chamber was enormous, with sections adapted for different atmospheric needs. Representatives from 7 alien species waited at separate tables. Armed guards from both sides lined the walls. "Welcome, humans," said the translator device as a tall, gray-skinned Calectrian stepped forward. "We are prepared to discuss terms." For 3 hours, the negotiations seemed to progress. Several species expressed regret over the coming conflict. The Enteri representative even shared evidence supporting Alan Martinez's theory about the Dominion's manipulations. "We have been deceived, as have you," the Enteri said through its translator. "The Dominion has played a long game, pushing our civilizations toward mutual destruction." William felt cautiously hopeful. "Then let us work together too." The explosion cut off his words. The entire station shook violently. Emergency alarms blared as sections of the ceiling collapsed. "Betrayal," shouted the Vraxian delegate, drawing a weapon. "Wait." William raised his hands. "This isn't us." But chaos had already erupted. Gunfire crossed the chamber as guards from all sides opened fire. William saw the Enteri representative fall, struck by Vraxian weapons. "Get to the shuttle," Jack shouted, pulling William toward the exit. Dr. Olivia Carter helped a wounded diplomat while covering behind an overturned table. "William, the Dominion must have agents here." The Earth delegation fought their way back to their shuttle, losing 3 people in the process. As they escaped the disintegrating station, they witnessed ships attacking each other in space. Allies and enemies now impossible to distinguish. "Get us home," William ordered the pilot, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. But Earth was already under attack. As their shuttle approached, they received emergency broadcasts. A massive weapon had struck Europa, one of Jupiter's moons and home to 5 million human colonists. The entire moon was breaking apart. "My God," Olivia whispered, watching the footage. Europa's ice surface cracked like an eggshell, atmosphere venting into space. Those people. Back on Earth, the news of Europa's destruction spread rapidly. Riots broke out in cities as fear and anger boiled over. The peace faction lost all political support overnight. People who had protested against Terminus now demanded its use. General Martinez addressed the emergency session of the World Council, with President Harris notably absent. "The time for talk is over," he declared. "Europa was just the beginning. Our intelligence indicates attacks planned for Mars, Ganymede, and Earth itself." The council members, shaken by footage of Europa's destruction, voted almost unanimously to authorize full deployment of all Terminus weapons. In a military hospital, Major Natalie Foster watched the vote on a screen from her bed, where she was still recovering from injuries sustained during her arrest. Tears streamed down her face. "They played us perfectly," she whispered. The door to her room opened, and President Harris herself entered, flanked by security. "Major Foster," the president said urgently, "we need your help. Your brother is still commanding one of the Terminus ships, and he's not responding to orders." "What orders?" Natalie asked. "To stand down," President Harris replied. "I have evidence this was all orchestrated by the Dominion, including Europa." Natalie struggled to sit up. "Then we need to stop this before it's too late." 12 Terminus devices moved into position throughout alien territory. Each device was carried by Earth's fastest ships, cloaked from detection. Each targeted a major homeworld of the hostile coalition. Captain Peter Foster sat in the command chair of the EDF Vigilant, staring at the main view screen. His target was Vraxia Prime, homeworld of the species believed responsible for the attack on Europa. The Terminus device in his cargo hold was armed and ready. "Final approach to deployment coordinates in 30 minutes, Captain," reported his navigation officer. Peter nodded silently. His ship had been running dark for days, ignoring all communications from Earth Command. After Europa's destruction, General Martinez had issued direct deployment orders, bypassing President Harris. Captain, called Lieutenant Amy Roberts from Communications. We're receiving a high-priority message on the emergency channel. It's coded specifically for you. Put it through to my private terminal, Peter ordered, moving to his station. The message was from his sister, Major Natalie Foster. Her face appeared on screen, tired but determined. Peter, listen carefully. This is not what it seems. President Harris has evidence that the attack on Europa was carried out by the Dominion, the same group that's been manipulating both humans and aliens for centuries. They want us to use Terminus. They want mutual destruction. Peter's hands tightened on the console. How do I know this isn't a trick? He asked, though Natalie couldn't hear his response in the recorded message. I'm sending proof, she continued. Alan Martinez decoded their communications. The Dominion needs us to deploy Terminus to complete their plan. Please, wait for confirmation before you launch. The message ended, followed by a data packet. Peter opened it, finding communication logs, sensor readings, and analysis. He studied them carefully, his face growing paler with each passing minute. Meanwhile, on Earth, communications specialist Lisa Garcia prepared to broadcast humanity's final ultimatum. Standing in Earth's primary broadcast center, surrounded by military personnel loyal to General Martinez, she faced the camera. To all species who have taken action against humanity, she began, her voice steady despite her fear. Terminus weapons are now positioned throughout your territories. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. After that time, your worlds will face the same fate as Star HD 219,134. The message went out across all channels in multiple languages. As Lisa stepped away from the camera, Commander Elijah Carter burst into the broadcast center with armed security forces. This broadcast was not authorized by the president, he announced. General Martinez is attempting a military coup. Chaos erupted as soldiers loyal to different factions trained weapons on each other. Commander Carter, Lisa said urgently, I've discovered something in the alien communications. While monitoring responses to the ultimatum, Lisa had noticed strange patterns in the background frequencies, hidden messages embedded within the primary signals. It's the Dominion, Elijah realized as he examined her findings. They're communicating directly with General Martinez. Across the solar system, the 12 Terminus ships continued toward their targets. Peter Foster stared at the evidence his sister had sent. The Dominion communications were clear. They had orchestrated everything, manipulating both sides toward mutual annihilation. All stop, Peter ordered suddenly. Power down the Terminus device. His executive officer looked shocked. Sir, our orders are compromised, Peter finished. Send emergency signals to the other Terminus vessels. Authorization code Foster Alpha 7. Back on Earth, President Harris addressed the world from a secure bunker, revealing the truth about the Dominion's manipulations. Fighting had broken out in major military installations between forces loyal to her and those following General Martinez. We have less than 72 hours, Elijah told Olivia as they raced to contact the remaining Terminus ships. If even one device deploys, the aliens will retaliate. And the Dominion wins, Olivia finished grimly. The countdown to potential galactic annihilation continued, unstoppable like the ticking of a cosmic clock. Humanity's greatest threat wasn't the aliens after all, but the shadowy Dominion who had played both sides perfectly until now. The 72-hour deadline approached its final minutes. On the bridge of the EDF Vigilant, Captain Peter Foster received confirmation that 9 of the 12 Terminus ships had stood down. 3 remained silent, still heading toward their targets. Any response from the Victory, the Dauntless, or the Horizon? Peter asked his communications officer. Negative, sir. They're maintaining communications blackout. Peter exchanged a grim look with his executive officer. They're still following Martinez's orders. Across the galaxy, alien worlds prepared for possible destruction. Mass evacuations created chaos, though everyone knew there was nowhere truly safe to run if their stars collapsed. On Vraxia Prime, the High Council gathered in their ancient chamber. The oldest member, Elder Kraz, spoke solemnly. After careful consideration of the evidence provided by the human president, we acknowledge the Dominion's deception. We officially withdraw from the coalition and surrender to human authorities. Similar scenes played out on 4 other major worlds. One by one, species broke from the coalition, realizing they had been manipulated. Formal surrenders poured in, monitored by Lisa Garcia at Earth Command. 6 species have surrendered completely, she reported to President Harris. 2 others are in negotiations. And the rest? The president asked. 3 remain hostile. Commander Elijah Carter replied, including the Dominion themselves. Major Natalie Foster, now released and reinstated, studied the tactical display. The hostile forces are gathering for a final attack on Earth. They know they've lost the coalition, so they're going all in. Alarms blared suddenly through the command center. Multiple hostile ships entering the solar system, shouted a sensor operator. They've bypassed our outer defenses. The attack was massive and desperate. Alien warships appeared near Mars, Jupiter, and in Earth orbit. Ground forces teleported directly into major cities. The final battle for humanity's survival had begun. President Harris made the hardest decision of her life. Authorize limited terminus deployment. Target the Dominion homeworld only. The order went out, reaching Captain Peter Foster. His ship was closest to Dominion space. Set course for the Dominion Central System, he commanded. Maximum speed. The EDF Vigilant shot forward into faster-than-light travel, racing toward a grim destiny. On Earth, Commander Elijah Carter led the orbital defense, while Bolivia coordinated with alien allies who had switched sides. Together, they fought to protect Earth from the remaining hostile forces. The Interi fleet has engaged the Dominion ships near Jupiter, Olivia reported. They're buying us time. The battle raged across the solar system. Cities burned. Ships exploded in silent flashes across the void of space. Humanity fought with everything it had, standing alongside its new allies against the architects of the conflict. The EDF Vigilant reached the Dominion homeworld. On screen, Peter saw a strange dark planet orbiting a blood-red star. Terminus device ready, reported his weapons officer. Peter took a deep breath. Deploy. The device vanished in a flash of quantum displacement. Seconds later, the red star began to flicker and contort. The bridge crew watched in silence as the star collapsed, imploding into darkness. The Dominion homeworld, caught in the gravitational maelstrom, broke apart and vanished into the newly formed black hole. It's done, Peter whispered. Throughout the galaxy, the remaining hostile forces received news of the Dominion's destruction. Without their hidden masters, their will to fight evaporated. Within hours, all resistance ended. 1 month later, Commander Elijah Carter and Dr. Olivia Carter stood in the newly established Galactic Council chamber on Earth. Representatives from 17 species gathered around a circular table, former enemies now cautious allies. Today marks the beginning of a new era, Elijah addressed the assembly. The Dominion's manipulation has ended. Now we must build something better. Olivia stepped forward. We have all suffered. We have all been deceived. But together, we can ensure this never happens again. The alien representatives nodded in agreement. A treaty was signed establishing peace and cooperation throughout known space. The remaining terminus devices were placed under joint control, never to be used unless all council members agreed. As the delegates filed out, Ambassador William Chen approached the Carters. Not bad for a primitive species, he said with a small smile. 5 years had passed since the Dominion's fall. On the anniversary of the peace treaty, Captain Peter Foster, now Admiral Foster, stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station. The massive space structure orbited at the exact point where Earth, Vraxian, and Interi territories met. Below him, representatives from 23 species mingled freely. Some looked almost human. Others resembled nothing Earth's imagination had ever conjured. Yet they spoke as equals, trading stories and ideas. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" said Major Natalie Foster, joining her brother. She wore the uniform of the new Galactic Peace Corps, created after the war. "I never thought I'd see this," Peter admitted. "Sometimes I still wake up expecting to be at war." Natalie watched an Enteri child playing with a human boy, both laughing as they chased a floating toy. "The younger generations will find this normal. That's something." Across the station, Commander Elijah Carter and Dr. Olivia Carter worked in the new Xenological Research Center. Thousands of scientific teams from different worlds shared knowledge here, studying everything from medicine to faster-than-light travel. "The Vraxian biotechnology is incredible," Olivia said, examining cell cultures. "Their regeneration techniques could revolutionize human medicine." Elijah nodded, though his attention was on a different screen. "Security reports from the outer systems. Something's bothering you," Olivia noted, knowing her husband well. "Just being careful," he replied. "Old habits." Not all was perfect in the new galactic community. 3 species had refused to join the alliance. Others maintained secret military programs. And disturbing reports occasionally emerged from beyond known space, whispers that perhaps not all the Dominion had been destroyed. In the station's central chamber, President Harris, now retired but still influential, addressed the gathered delegates. Her hair had whitened completely since the war. "5 years ago, we stood at the edge of mutual destruction," she said. "Today we stand together as architects of something greater than any single civilization could build alone." She gestured toward a display showing new colonies where multiple species lived together, sharing worlds instead of fighting over them. "Yet we must remain vigilant. Peace is not passive. It requires constant work, constant attention." After the ceremony, Admiral Foster met with the Galactic Council's Security Committee in a private room. Representatives from 7 species reviewed intelligence reports. "The anomalies near the Cygnus Void continue," reported the Vraxian delegate. "Energy signatures match old Dominion technology." Lisa Garcia, now Earth's Chief of Intelligence, displayed sensor readings. "Whatever's out there, it's watching us, gathering information. Perhaps survivors of the Dominion," suggested the Enteri representative, its translucent skin pulsing with concern. Peter studied the data carefully, or perhaps something that controlled even the Dominion. "We may have only seen the puppets, not the puppet masters." The council debated increasing border patrols and deploying long-range probes. No one mentioned terminus weapons, though they remained, secured in a vault that required all council members to open. Later that night, Alan Martinez joined the Carters for dinner in their station quarters. Now director of interspecies communications, he had become a close friend. "To peace," Olivia toasted, raising her glass. "And vigilance," Elijah added quietly. As they ate, their conversation turned to the future. Plans for joint scientific missions, new treaties being negotiated, children growing up in a galaxy where different species were allies rather than threats. Yet through the window, the endless darkness of space reminded them how small they still were, how much remained unknown. On the edge of charted space, a probe sent its last transmission before going silent. Its final image showed something massive moving in the darkness, a shape that matched no known species. Humanity had sent its warning to the galaxy. Peace had been established. But perhaps somewhere in the vast emptiness between stars, something else had received their message too. Something that had been watching all along, patient and ancient. The universe held many secrets still, and humanity and its allies would face them together, stronger for the trials they had already overcome.